Can you hear me? Am I live? Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and going Instagram live. I got to get back into Instagram. They need to have a way to do it together. So let's put a comment. I actually got gonna go some text questions I got. So let me chat really quick. So let me go through some text. And by the way, anybody can send me a text. It's 949-415-6256. I want you to let me know right now where you're watching from. Hi, Noemi. How's it going? Nice to see you. Where are you watching from? And then what are you drinking? For me, it's black. No. Yeah. Nine four nine 415-6256. The first one is from background. They're a regulatory coordinator. So they're asking, Canada Water. Nice. Rod Raphael with the robot. Rod Raphael, you've been helping us a lot with the Chris and Dan show song requests. So I'm gonna get to your Will Smith song soon. Don't worry. We're gonna see if Chris likes it. Texas. We've got Nashville, Tennessee. Coffee number 2 for me. Yeah. Is it cup number 2 or pot number 2? Austin. Continuation of a question from Monday's live stream. So somebody who's a regulatory coordinator, they're a startup research assistant, and I'm guessing it's for a CRO. They help sites. Oh, Fresno, California, nice. On your way to an IMV, make sure that, are you doing the IMV? I think you are. I think you're a CRA, Noemi. Good luck with that. I have to finish up a report that I was working on. I think I'm going to finish it up later today. Brad. Yeah, okay. So, regulatory research, study startup research assistant, and they have an interview coming up for regulatory coordinator position. The recruiter let them know, hey, they will most likely ask about certain processes and scenarios where you face conflict. So be prepared to go in depth with your answers. So there's no need to be afraid. As a startup specialist for a CRO, most of the conflict is around getting the coordinators to submit the documents, right? This is like the whole crux of that process. So just go into detail on a typical study, how that works, what you need to request, what is typically missing from the site. I've done both. I do site and this contract CRA, so I do both like. And I know as a site, one of the hardest things, or one of the things that takes us the longest, are things like sending, like when there's a CV that needs to be signed, okay, or like an updated license. Just getting those from the provider sometimes is tough. So that usually takes the longest time. So that's like a mini conflict, right? It doesn't have to be dramatic like telenovela conflict. Just what's a regular process. The more in depth you can go, how did you overcome this issue with the coordinator? What did you do? How many times did you call them? Did you email them? Did you follow up on a phone call? What exactly did you do? What exactly did you say to get to resolve, to get the problem solved? You can go this answer, such as maybe you had a conflict with a coworker or a conflict with a manager, and how did you resolve that conflict? So that's like personal stuff. I have no idea how to answer that. So there's 2 ways you can go about it. Regular day-to-day process, like job responsibilities that entail conflict, albeit less dramatic, or the more dramatic personal um, conflicts and disputes that we all get ourselves into every now and then, regardless of how hard we try not to. Okay, monitor. Noemi's a monitor. I knew you were. Good luck. Good luck with IMV. Here's to resolved action items. Noemi on here. Everybody go follow Noemi. She's a longtime fan. Brad Raphael also. Good songs for you or Chris. Yeah, well, for Chris. Okay, is it GCP for a husband and wife doctors to be PI and sub-I on the same study? So go in GCP. This homework assignment for you. Go in GCP and show says it's not okay. Find it. So that's your answer. It's if anything, it's going to be a sponsor issue, and the sponsors don't have an issue. The regulators don't have an issue either. There's nothing wrong with family businesses. For example, I have 3 studies at 3 different clinics, and I have my business registered at my home address. Where do I store the study documents? What documents can I store at my home? Okay, this is a different question. So you cannot store study documents at your house. Okay, and your office has closed, then you are responsible as the PI for archiving the study documents. Then it would be okay to store it wherever you deem fit, wherever, because you're the PI, so it's your responsibility. You just have to notify the sponsor. But this is all the more reason, guys, and I've switched to eReg and eSource on my studies at UMA Clinical Trials. It's a startup company, but we're starting from electronic source, electronic regulatory from the beginning, because you don't have this issue. The documents are stored in the cloud, in the server. So you this problem. Now, you can't, during the course of a study, you can't store anything at your house. It's but at the site, and you have, if it's not electronic, you got to keep it double locked, restricted access. Only you can have access to it, just like investigational product. Only you or the people like the coordinators or whomever's responsible for the study documents. He's camera. All right, Carla Vera Navas, good morning from Miami. One of the best places to be. Observation during IMV, please explain. I mean, it could be anything. We should go ask Noemi, what major observations. Um, you're going to find something, maybe not. You're like, you may not always find a deviation, but you may find potential deviations. Then you got to get clarification from the site, and you got to get clarification from the sponsor. But just documenting those things in your IMV report shows that you are on top of it as a CRA and you're doing your job. And at the end of the day, that's what they're hiring you for. But like a major observation during an IMV would be like a protocol deviation, would it be a GCP violation, an informed consent issue, your observations. What are the HR, so human resources essentials for a clinical site startup? Do we need to depend on someone for these services? No, site needs to do this. So first of all, that's not HR, that's not human resource. Study startup at a site level is usually done by the coordinator. So you need a study coordinator for the most part. So there's no HR. HR, a lot of sites don't even have HR. It's the site director that does HR. I'm HR for my site. That has nothing to do with study startup. Regulatory documents, 1572, financial disclosure forms, the other essential documents, IRB approval, all that stuff. SOP, process of consent, CLIA waiver, GCP, all those things that study startup. Good morning from Alabama. How's it going? You guys got a great football team again this year. What are your thoughts about raising queries way before SDV? Is that recommended or no? So if you're a CRA and you issue a query before you source data verify, I mean, there are some that do that. So if you know the protocol well, you can tell if the queries are not auto-generated by the system. Sometimes you can tell, hey, why did you do this on this date when the visit occurred on this date and all the assessments should have been done on the same date? So you can you can query those things to actually doing source data verification. So by the time you get to the site and do it, you're at least ahead of the game. So I have no thoughts about this. I mean, it's if CRAs are going to do that, they're going to do that. Follow the monitoring plan. And if you have autonomy to decide for yourself, I would say do what works best for you. As CRA is a tough job. So whatever helps you do your job better, that's what you should do. Noemi says, I prioritize SDR, SDV. Note any deviations or issues. And that training has been completed for staff delegating. Check essential documents and always try to talk to the PI. Yep, I just did a monitoring visit yesterday, and I have to schedule. It was a remote visit, so I've got to schedule a call with the PI. I got to talk, even if it's 10 minutes. Why enter data directly into EDC? Isn't it the same as entering the data in eSource? I think we're getting there. I don't. That's actually a good question. I think because you're near your laptop for all assessments, for example, vital signs. I mean, you could be. I think the industry is going to get there, SM. I call it the great convergence coming up. I don't know what other people call it, but basically when eSource, Viva is trying to do this, when eSource automatically uploads to EDC, I think that's going to be more compliant with GCP, is having the eSource directly, automatically being merged into the EDC. I think we're closer to that than just entering it in the EDC itself. Remember, EDC is not source. That's a CRF. That's a case report form. Companies in US sponsor H1B for someone who has completed master's. Yes, they do. You just got to network a lot, talk to a lot of people. It happens. I've sponsored H1Bs from my sites. I've probably had like 6 small sites that I've actively managed in my career. And I've sponsored 4 people in the 15 years. And these are small. I mean, these are small sites. So even site do it. You just got to network. You got to have connections. It helps to be on LinkedIn. Colette says, what are your thoughts if a PI says you're sending him too many emails? There is a lot to sign during a study startup. I would condense. So yes, my PI, and I'm not even my PI, and I'm the site director for my PI. He complains I send him too many emails. Forget about the monitor. He says I send him too many. So I think the solution to that is longer emails, longer but fewer emails. So rather than sending an email for everything you need, condense everything into one succinct email, maybe once a week or emails, and them condensed, or not condensed, have them like more detailed. CRC or PI typically signs the routine documents at the site, such as source, temperature logs, drug accountability logs. That's typically the coordinator, but the PI needs to have their fingerprint on everything. The PI needs to be aware of everything. Delegation log is only PI. Source documents, depending on the assessments, not all source are the same. Depending on the assessments, it might need to be PI, or it could be sub-I, or other study staff. Research is booming here in New York. How is your UMA site doing? GI, yes, there are 2 studies that I could get. There is a Crohn's study and there is an ulcerative colitis study that I could get. But I'm being very picky right now because space is limited in my site. I'm working out of the doctor's office, and I think in 6 months or so, in addition to working out of various doctors' offices, I will have my own site, and then we can do more studies. But GI is absolutely booming. Will eventually be more acceptable. Currently, a lot of my sites have capabilities for remote monitoring, but the spot for on-site visit, I think having a balance of remote and on-site is good. I agree. I think a balance. I think what's going to make remote monitoring indistinguishable from in-person monitoring, or nearly indistinguishable, is when all sites use eSource and CRAs have access to the entire eSource for their visits. Because right now, most sites don't use eSource, and the CRAs have to request specific like what visits do you want to review. So then if you finish those visits as a CRA, if you finish your source data verification and source data review on those visits, you have to ask for more, right? And they're not going to give it to you on the same day. So then you got to wait till your next visit. It's less efficient as opposed to if I had eSource access as a CRA for everything in that study at that site level, I'd be able to do whatever I needed to do without asking people. Those studies, they're out there. There's just few. It's a business around dental studies. Unless it's a side business, you're already a dentist. I wouldn't try to build a business around dental studies. I'm sure there's people that do it, but there's just not enough studies for me um, to even pursue that. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, in my opinion. But I'm not a dentist. If I were a dentist, it probably would be. Employment in USA while one is a Canadian permanent resident. Yeah, it is. I don't know much about immigration law and all that kind of stuff. That's not the guru. That's not the videos I do. I'm sure there are, but yes, I know of people who have done that. What Part 11 compliant electronic signature tools do you use? So Creo. I use Creo as an example for my eSource. And for eReg, they still have to sign the paper docs, but what you do is you upload them. I do know sites that use things like DocuSign to have the documents signed. I know Viva does it that way, Viva Vault. Monica uses Viva Vault for one of our sites. I haven't used Viva Vault, Viva e-regulatory. I've just used Creo. But Creo on the source, it's 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. There's plenty of vendors out there. This industry has no shortage of vendors. There's lots of companies willing to take your money. Ordering be a mandatory thing in the future. I think you'll always need the CRA to have the relationship with the sites, one-on-one. Centralized monitoring is going to be way too much work for one. More of a support the CRAs, like a remote site monitor, for example. That's centralized monitoring. They're meant to assist the CRAs in their jobs. Hey, I noticed, Dan, your next IMV to visit the site is next week. Make sure you collect this, 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 and this, and ask about this SAE. That's what centralized monitoring is. It's not actually doing the monitoring. It's data science field and pharma, or is this a strange transition? No, it's not. It's not. I just interviewed a data manager, Aditya, and yes, CRAs become data managers. Once you're in data management, you get into data science and those kind of things. Cassandra Andrade, you know what? Great LICR ambassador meeting yesterday. I was there. I was in the room with Chris, so I was listening, but I was not near his computer, but I was listening to you guys on the ambassador call. Permanent resident is not the same as citizen. Permanent resident can only work in U.S. on H-1Bs, H-1B visas. See, there you go. Very user friendly. I have a PI who is a colorectal surgeon, but he is affiliated with a big physician group. Would it correct? You need correct. Technically, research is not competing with private practice, but if it has research or planning on having a research, it could become a problem. Another thing is you're not going to have access to his patients because it's the group's patients. So those are the two challenges I foresee. Especially if you can figure out a way to get patients, it's less of a problem for you, Nancy. He's deal with problems with his group. Why are you doing research when we want to do research? We want, there's. I generally don't like working with physicians affiliated with big groups unless they understand that they are going to understand that they can't work. They know the contract they signed, is what I'm trying to say. I don't know the contract they signed. So they'll tell you, hey, we have non-compete, or they want me to give them full disclosure of what I'm doing outside of the group, even if it's not private practice, but clinical research may be somewhat related to private practice a little bit, might cause problems. So transparency and then finding the patients. That's the tough part. Okay, let's see here. When I got somebody texted me 949-415-6256. Anybody can do that. By the way, leave a like, subscribe, comment, share, and then leave comments. If you don't know what to comment, put robot emoji. That helps the algorithm. So hey, I'm wanting to start a clinical trial recruitment company. I want to keep it super easy by focusing on patient recruitment, by educating and providing qualified enrollees to CRO centers. Is this possible, and do you like the idea? I am 100% targeting bringing African Americans and Hispanics for better representation to help better health outcomes in our community. So, of course, a good idea. How can you say this is not a good idea? The problem is the execution. I think the CRO centers, the CRO centers only do phase 1 studies. They typically don't need help recruiting for phase 1 studies. They pay big bucks to the volunteers. Recruiting, especially for minorities, are a regular study, phase 2, 3, and 4. Oncology, ulcerative colitis, psoriasis, atopic dermatitis, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, lupus. These are the kind of studies that need help. CROs wouldn't even know what to do with your leads. CROs hire vendors to send leads to the sites. There's plenty of vendors that do this already, most of them not good, but they have a hard time. You're going to have a lot of problems to figure out. They have a hard time figuring out how do we get the sites to respond to these leads, because jaded when it comes to working with recruitment vendors that they often don't even respond to leads from vendors. The study coordinator is so overworked, the last thing they want are more patients in their study. And so then they don't respond, or they're not as incentivized to respond. So unfortunately for you, great idea, billion-dollar idea with a B. Execution, almost impossible. No one's figured it out yet. Nobody's figured it out. So, a lot of challenges. But if it's something you're passionate about, I say do it. But it's not going to be CRO centers. You got to educate yourself more on the process. Talk to more people, go network, go to conferences, go to DIA, go to BIO, go to Society of Clinical Research Sites conference, go to Viva conference, go to conferences. you routinely use at a clinical site? Let's see, accounting. The accounting is easy. All right. You look at the contract, you look at the budget, that they're gonna have all the terms in the contract and budget. Then get yourself a CTMS system like I use Creo. It's built into my eSource. So you can track receivables. Anything invoiceable, again, it's in your contract. If you don't have someone to negotiate your contract, you need to talk to me and Chris about working with you guys. It's only $1,300 a month. Not only do we help get you studies, help you create source, help you answer any questions you have, but we negotiate your contract and budget for you. So I think you're overthinking it here. Terms, just know what you need, what's automatically paid versus what you have to invoice for. You don't need to do anything with that as a site. I've never been asked for a scope of work as a site. Negotiate this contract, negotiate this budget, and send us invoices when you want cost reimbursed, pass through cost reimbursed. Rajiv, any possibility in the US as a CRA if I don't have any experience in the US? No, generally no. You have to go coordinator route again, or in-house CRA, or all that other stuff. Noemi, glad you were able to make it. Good luck with your IMV. I think I'm kind of done too with this live stream right now because there's a lot of other stuff I got to do today. But again, okay, let's do one more. LinkedIn user, I'm a CRC taking a master's degree in quality assurance. What path would you recommend? Honestly, anything you want. You can go CRA, and then you can go lead CRA. You can go project manager. You can go regulatory affairs. You can go clinical trial manager. But that's not going to be just because your master's degree. That's going to be your master's degree plus the experience you get on your career. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully by the end of this live stream, do we know the difference between SDV and SDR? SDV is source data verification. It's the easiest thing a CRA does. Look on the source. Does it match the EDC? That's easy. That's not what they pay you the big bucks for. That's not what makes monitoring stressful. Source data review is what makes monitoring stressful, and that's where you got to know the gray area. Is what I'm seeing on the source protocol compliant? That's a big question. It's a constant, never-ending question. Is what I'm seeing on the source GCP compliant? That's also a great question and a never-ending question. These are a source data review. I will end it on that. Keep your questions coming. Keep the likes going. Keep the shares going. Keep the comments going. Keep the robot emojis going. And I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.